Could you explain to us the start of the destruction of the black family, the steps they took, and why they did that?
Yes, sir. It goes back to Dr. King's assassination. We have to understand something about Dr. King, despite all the criticism that he gets, which I think is quite well undeserved, and I think is very hypocritical for black people who support Kamala Harris or support Barack Obama or support Joe Biden to be so critical of a Dr. King. Dr. King is the reason you allowed to date that damn snow bunny. He's the reason you allowed to send your child to that PWI. He's the reason you were able to buy your house in that suburb. He's the reason that you can fight back against discrimination. You know, that fight began with my cousin, the greatest leader in American history, the Honorable Frederick Douglass, but Dr. King came to guarantee what Frederick Douglass secured, because although the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, particularly the 14th Amendment, was supposed to guarantee us equal protection under the law, and the 15th Amendment was supposed to guarantee us the right to vote, it took almost 100 years for them to fully implement that. So Dr. King came to finish off what Frederick Douglass started. And the point of me bringing up Dr. King's name is we haven't had a leader since Dr. King, nobody, to give us a systemic, comprehensive mass movements for social, political, or economic change. Dr. King was the last one. We're 57 years in, and we haven't had a leader do anything even close to what Dr. King did. And the reason the good reverend was murdered is because he was leading an economic revolution. They were going to go to Washington, D.C. with the breadbasket campaign, and no black person was going to leave D.C. until everybody had a home and a job. And not only was he taking Africans, he was taking Americans of every color. Okay, but they were going to erect a tent city. In essence, they were going to embarrass the government. They were going to embarrass the government, and the government couldn't allow to let that happen, because Dr. King and Frederick Douglass are the only two leaders who actually bear what you want to call it, the distinction of being the only black men who are more popular than the president at the time they lived. Frederick Douglass was more popular than Abraham Lincoln, and Dr. King was more popular than Lyndon Baines Johnson. So after they murdered Dr. King, there was still 5 more they had to get. There was still 5 more they had to get. They had to get our apprentice Bunchy Carter. Our apprentice Bunchy Carter was one of the leaders of the Black Panther Party in LA. I believe he was the head of the Slauson Gang, which was one of the largest street gangs in Los Angeles, but he was politically conscious. He's almost Tupac before Tupac, but not a rapper. And so the government, J. Edgar Hoover, was very afraid of the influence that Bunchy Carter, our apprentice Bunchy Carter, had in LA. And so Bunchy Carter had to be assassinated. They also had to kill A.D. King, Dr. King's younger brother, who was the primary architect of the Fair Housing Act. Dr. King had a piece in it, but it was A.D. King who had more to do with the Fair Housing Act than Dr. King. They murdered him and put him in a swimming pool. And when they pulled A.D. King out the swimming pool, the person who pulled him out the swimming pool said there was no fluid in his lungs. How can you drown if there's no fluid in his lungs? So he was murdered first and then drug into the pool to make it look like it was an accident, when in fact he was a master swimmer. So they had to get rid of A.D. King so he wouldn't replace Dr. King. They had to get rid of Bunchy Carter. Then they also had to get rid of Geronimo Pratt. Remember, Geronimo Pratt was a well-decorated Vietnam War veteran. He came back well-decorated for the Vietnam War. He joins the Black Panther Party. He teaches them mastery of weapons, self-defense, building protection. So when they had that famous shootout at 41st and Central, and the FBI kept trying to bomb the Panther headquarters, they couldn't bust it open, because Geronimo taught those brothers how to insulate the building. So no matter what type of fire kegs they drop on, we will survive. And by the way, SWAT, 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 Strategic Weapons and Assault and Tactics, I think the name is, that was created because of the Black Panther Party. If it wasn't for the Black Panther Party, there would have been no SWAT. So A.D. King, they had to get. Our apprentice Bunchy Carter, they had to get. Geronimo Pratt, they had to get. Fred Hampton, they had to get. Okay, they had to get Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton, I believe, if he was allowed to live, he may have come close to the numbers of the right, excellent, honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who's the greatest organizer the world has ever seen. Black, white, brown, red, yellow. No one has ever organized people on the level of an honorable Marcus Garvey. Fred Hampton, I think, could have done that. He had just been elected the national spokesperson for the Black Panther Party, came back, he gets assassinated, and the 5th and final person that they had to take out after killing Dr. King was George Jackson, Soledad brother. They had to get Soledad brother. He had started a chapter of the Black Panther Party in prison. He was also co-founder of the Black Guerrilla Family. George Jackson had to go. So after they got King, they took out the final five. Once they took out the final five, they said, we're never going to let this happen again. We are never going to let black people take America to the brink of disintegration. I don't think black people really comprehend how effective the civil rights and black power movements were in the 1960s. I don't think we understand it. We brought America damn near to its knees. I don't think we really understand that America had to deal with almost 30 legitimate, serious black organizations, not the kind you see popping up on YouTube with opportunistic leaders who ain't building no institutions, ain't organizing the people, they just run their mouth on YouTube. That's not what you had in the 60s. That's what you have today. This stuff you got today is nothing but a joke. It's all theater. But I'm talking about serious grassroots movements. They had to deal with SNCC. They had to deal with CORE. They had to deal with the Freedom Riders, the Bus-Ins, Southern Christian Leadership Camp Conference. You had the Nation of Islam. You had the Garvey Movement. You had the Panthers, the BLA, Black Liberation Army, the Deacons for Defense. We could go on and on and on and on. J. Edgar Hoover damn near lost his mind. And after he took out King in the final five, they said, we can never let this happen again. So where do we start? They said the first thing we got to do is take away the black man's ability to finance the Black Revolution. The first thing we got to do is take away the black man's ability to finance the Black Revolution. And that's when they came into the black community and economically destroyed us. They went into the high schools, St. Louis included. They went into the high schools and they took out all the industrial building trade training programs. Before 1970, our grandparents could graduate from high school already licensed to be a plumber, electrician, carpenter, welder, roofer, barber. They did not have to go to college. They left high school with a credential that allowed them to work and earn a living that's better than what a lot of us have today. Then they took all the factories out, right? So we're going to make sure they don't learn how to do the work, and then we actually going to get rid of the work. So they turned the black community into an economic desert. That was the 70s. The 1980s, they dropped off crack and AIDS. Biological warfare with the AIDS, chemical warfare with the crack. And I'm going to tell you right now, gentlemen, that probably was the greatest weapon of mass destruction after slavery that the white man dropped off in our community, because most of the problems we're dealing with right now come from the fatherlessness and the motherlessness of the mass incarceration and murder that grew from AIDS and crack. The teenage pregnancy crisis, AIDS and crack. The foster care crisis, AIDS and crack. The homelessness crisis, AIDS and crack. Most of what we're dealing with today, gangster rap. I would make the argument gangster rap may not even exist if it wasn't for AIDS and crack. Not hip hop, gangster rap. Got me? So
two different things.
They dropped off the crack and the AIDS in the 80s. Then in the 90s, Bill Clinton gave you the federal crime bill. 1994, he overhauled the whole federal crime statute. And for the first time in American history, you could go to jail for the rest of your life if you never put a hand on a person. 3 strikes and you out, mandatory minimum sentencing. Bill Clinton changed the game. So mass incarceration was really created by the Democrats, not the Republicans. That was the 90s. And then in the year 2000, you get faith-based initiative. That's when George W. Bush, the son, he comes up with a loophole in the federal law that allows them to finance black churches with federal money, even though the Constitution says what? Separation of church and state. But President Bush found a way to get around that. He started financing black churches. Why did President Bush start financing black churches? He don't care about black people. Him and his daddy are 2 of the most racist presidents in American history. He needed to finance the black churches so they would not push back against the next 2 things that were going to be rolled out. All right. In the 2000s, what they rolled out along with the faith-based initiative was the gentrification movement, the taking back of inner city black communities, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Chicago, okay? All of these black city centers that were white, but we came into them, particularly during World War I, World War II. White people ran to the suburbs. White people got tired of living in the suburbs. White people said, I want to go back to the inner city because that's where I started. I'm tired of sitting in traffic for 3 hours to go to a Giants game. I'm tired of sitting in traffic for 3 hours to go to an Eagles game. I want to live in the city so I can get on the bus and be there in 10 minutes. Why do black people have it easy and us rich white privileged folks out here in the suburbs having to suffer to get into the city like this? So they decided to switch it out. Okay, that's why your communities are being overrun now. White people taking black property. That started in the year 2000. So they had to pay the churches to not do anything about it. The faith-based initiative was about making sure black churches do not fight for black people anymore. If I go to St. Louis right now, what church is at the forefront of the miseducation war for our children? None of them. What church is at the forefront of homelessness and gentrification? None of them. What church is at the forefront of fighting for criminal justice? None of them. What church is at the forefront fighting against police brutality and genocide? None of them. What church is at the forefront of fighting for economic power? None of them. So they funded the black churches so they could stay out the way. 2010 gentrification, and then the last step, 2000 gentrification. The last step, good brothers, was 2010. Barack Hussein Obama and the psychosexual war against black public school children. Barack Obama was put in office to do two things: make America safe for Western exploitation of its resources, make Africa safe for Western exploitation of its resources, and to make the black community safe for the pushing of LGBTQ alternative lifestyles on innocent inner city black children. Barack Obama did that, and nobody said a damn thing about it. And now look at the problem we got now.